That's just my opinion. But anyway, in 2004, we had, we were that close, and a lot of people were willing to give up, and I think were sort of shrugging their shoulders like we did everything we possibly could. I'll never forget, there were 2 articles in the Sunday New York Times Magazine by Matt Bai, B-A-I, if you read that, remember that name. He wrote a story about Karl Rove and the Republican machine prior to the '04 election and then right after the '04 election. I remember reading that about how they worked the churches so well in their neighborhoods and worked through both corporate interest and sort of the anti-choice, anti-gay initiative and all that. And I just remember saying to Connie, my wife, I don't know how we win in this state again. And then 2004, then early 2005, and you began to, you organized through '04, and then you didn't quit after '04, and that's the real key. There's nobody in the state that I saw is quickly get up after losing and dust yourself off and come right back at it. Literally nobody in the state did what UA progressives did. You could also argue nobody in the state had as far to go as you all did, but what you were able to do was just so incredible, and a model for democratic organizations, whether it's county parties or women's clubs or young Dems on campuses or labor trade unionists all over the state, environmental groups, children's advocates that saw what you did with the UA progressives, UA for Carry, UA progressives, and that really did set a tone. Then if you remember in early '05 when Karl Rove was saying that there's going to be a permanent Republican majority, and the UA progressives said no, there isn't. Then Bush tried to begin to privatize Social Security. Then it was Katrina. Then then the war continued, and the more policies, deregulation of Wall Street, tax cuts for the rich, give away to the bailout for the drug and insurance companies in the name of Medicare privatization. 2 wars that weren't paid for, and the voters began to understand what UA progressives had understood for years, and that was really the beginning. In '06, you elected a Democratic governor, a Democratic Senate, and several Democratic statewide office holders. And then in '08, you worked with Ted Celeste and others and elected a Democratic legislature. And you recall the president, when they called Ohio for Barack Obama, that's when the Obama campaign nationally knew they had won the presidency, and we're still in the same situation this year. And this year and leading up to 2012. The White House will say, they've not quite said it publicly, but they've said it to enough people, including me, from the top down, that the Ohio governor's race is probably the single most important race in the country for the White House. They absolutely don't want to lose Harry Reid. We don't want to lose a majority in the House. I don't think we're going to. We don't want to lose too many seats in the Senate. We're going to lose a small handful. But the governor's race in Ohio means everything, and it means not just the apportionment board for the next 10 years in a strengthening Democratic Party. Look what we did. In '06, win governor and Senate. '08, win the legislature. '10, the governor wins, we keep the legislature, we then control redistricting, and instead of the Republicans having it for 20 years, that's a big, big, big difference with the House and eventually even the state Senate, where we've had little chance to even get close to a majority in the last decade and a half. And you can see what that's going to mean for Barack Obama. If instead we have someone like John Kasich, who has consistently been on the wrong side of every single issue, who made millions off Wall Street, who voted wrong on everything in Congress, and you look precisely at, look for a moment at the historical perspective here. For 8 years, these numbers are worth remembering to your friends when you talk to your friends and neighbors and people at work and at church and school. 8 years of Bill Clinton, these are exactly right numbers. 8 years of Bill Clinton, 22 million increased private sector net increase of jobs, 22 million jobs. Incomes went up during Bill Clinton's presidency. 8 years of George Bush, January 20th to January 20th. 8 years of George Bush, 1 million jobs as opposed to 22 million, not even keeping up with the graduates from our universities, let alone other population growth. Incomes went down. George Bush took the largest budget surplus in American history, 8 years later handed the largest budget deficit in American history to Barack Obama. And these people, and across the country, the Republicans are saying, we want to go back to what we had. Well, Ohio actually has 3 candidates that got us there. Mike DeWine, Rob Portman, and John Kasich. These are 3 people that got us in this situation. Deregulation of Wall Street, wars and not paying for them, tax cuts for the rich that bankrupted the country, privatization of Medicare. All the things they did that put this country in the ditch where we found ourselves. Last set of numbers, when Barack Obama took office, we were losing 700,000 jobs a month. We are now gaining jobs, have for the last 7 or 8 months. Ohio is first in the nation in growth in clean energy jobs under the Recovery Act. There's a lot of things to brag about. Healthcare reform, 32 million people will have insurance. S-chip, reinstating the equal pay for equal work, the Lilly Ledbetter case. All of these things, the Wall Street reform, the credit card consumer legislation, all these things that we've done that the media don't much write about, the Tea Party doesn't want to think about, and we don't talk about enough. So we have something to tell the voters what we've done and what we're going to continue to do. All they can do is let's go back to the same bankrupt policies that got us into this. And that's what the election's about. It's not about, are you happy with the situation we're in? If you're not, then vote against the incumbent party. It's look what they did and look what we've done, make the comparison, make your decision based on that. If you do, we're going to see a much better year than we expect. I expect Ted Strickland's going to win this race. I think Lee Fisher Lee Fisher's behind and he's underfunded, but don't give up on him, because again, when people make the contrast of what Rob Portman was, budget director, trade representative, they know that he doesn't represent Ohio values, and he's a big reason, as is Mike DeWine, as is John Kasich, for getting us in this situation. The debate's about to begin in 5 minutes. Most importantly, we need you knocking on doors, doing what Democrats, and they got way more money. This awful, awful, awful Supreme Court decision that said that corporations have just as much right to free speech as Melissa Hedden is garbage. Melissa Hedden has more free speech than anybody here because she's so outspoken. But it's, you know, what they've done with the money that they're pouring into legislative races now, the money they're pouring into the governor's races around the country, their money they're putting into Senate races and House races. They just dumped $800,000 more on Zach Space. They're dumping money against Kilroy. They're dumping money against Bucherri in Northern Ohio. They've already dumped more than $1 million against Fisher. They've dumped who knows how much, the Republican Governors Association against Strickland. This is all this corporate, unreported money. Nobody knows what it is. Nobody knows where it comes from, except it's having an impact. That's why your grassroots effort, knocking on doors, individual people, talking to people at school, at church, in your neighborhood, at work, makes all the difference in the world, because they're going to trust you, whom they know and whom they know has expertise in politics, more than they're going to trust some TV ad. But you got to be in their face. You got to talk to people. Encourage our friends to vote early. Get them to the polls. Walk them there. Drive them there. Cattle prod them there, whatever you have to do to get them there. It's so important that you stand up and do that. That's why you're here tonight. I know you're the best activists in Franklin County. I'm proud of that. I'm thrilled to be here with you. And my daughters are going to join us in a few minutes. I don't think they're here yet. They say they are. They live in Columbus, but they're in their 20s, so who knows if they'll really show up. Ted knows one of them is responsible because she works. But anyway, but thank you for all that you do. You make such a difference. Enjoy the show.